Welcome into another edition of Ask the Experts. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Dave Callender, and back with me on the show today, Canada's #1 real estate agent. It's Faisal Susiwala of Remax Twin City Realty. Hi, Faisal. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you once again, and glad to have you back on the show as always. And we want to tell everyone while they listen to the show today, if you'd like to get in touch with Faisal or learn more, good place to start is his website. It's easy to remember. It's at homeshack.com, or you can call him at 519-624-5555. So, Faisal, I guess it's time to get caught up to start things up. What has been going on in the KW real estate market?
All kinds of fun stuff is happening. So we're going to talk about a few different things. First of all, a market update. So I think the last time I was on your show about a month ago, we were talking about the stress tests and how that's going to impact the property values and what it's going to do to the real estate industry as a whole. At this point, June 1st is when the stress test will come into effect, which means that one will have to qualify at a 5.25% interest rate, regardless of what the rate they're being given at the bank. Now, this has caused a little bit of a surge in the market with activity on sort of that first-time home buyer to medium-sized purchase, to ensure that the qualifying is still, within the guidelines of their lower rate, which was 4.79%. So we're seeing that. We're seeing that the number of bidding wars, however, have started to slow down. So where we were typically getting, 8 to 10 offers on a property, we're seeing it decline to maybe 3 to 5 per property. But that's also because we had a massive influx of inventory that sold out of the market, and buyers that were really keen on purchasing did the lion's share of purchasing in the first quarter of this year.
Mhm. So, what are the other things that you've noticed going on in the KW market?
Well, we're seeing that inventory is starting to creep up now. We're seeing a lot of people that were holding on to their properties, mostly investors that had townhomes and semi-detached and condos, saw what happened in January, February, and March and decided, well, look, we were expecting 30 or 40% gains over the next 6 to 8 years, but we've enjoyed that in the last 2 years, last 2 months. So why not just get out now, exit now, take our cash? Many of them are feeling that there will be a little bit of a decline in the market and they'll have an opportunity to buy again. But, with lumber prices going up and material prices going up and the shortage of supply, if there is going to be a decline, I do feel it's going to be still out in the distance. It's not going to happen in the near future, in my opinion. So you're seeing that interest rates are holding steady. The overall confidence in the market is there. There are a lot of frustrated buyers that are in the market, and I see that on my social media on a daily basis, because I like to keep people informed of what's happening, how much homes are selling for, how much above asking that I'm able to get for my sellers. And I can understand that as would be very frustrating for a buyer who keeps losing. However, we have to keep in mind that these sellers have owned these properties for years and never enjoyed growth on their properties, when our neighbors to the east, Mississauga, Toronto, Milton, were getting 10, 12, 15% annual increases or appreciation on their properties. So let's keep that in mind when we're begrudging people for making $300,000 or $200,000 over asking, or $300,000 above what they bought 4 years ago. We've just caught up to the market. So that's something to really be mindful of, that we are still a very affordable community. This entire region is very affordable, and will continue to be when we compare it to our neighbors just east of us.
This influx of inventory, is that going to continue as we head through the summer?
Well, I hope there will be more inventory, because it will allow an opportunity for buyers to actually enter to the market, have a more of a thoughtful process in purchasing, not get up in the emotional bidding war sequence that most of us have had to deal with in the last year and a half now. So there is some room for that. And I think that that will happen, and it will calm the market a little bit. But I still see, and we talked about this last time that I was on your show, with 300,000 people coming into Canada annually, and half of those ending up in Toronto or Ontario, I should say, many of them will gravitate towards our area, and that's where we're going to see a continuous amount of growth. And that's where the region is talking about, how do we resolve this issue with housing? And we've heard about these tiny houses. We'll talk about that. We're talking about zone changes that will allow a little bit more intensification, higher density neighborhoods. So these are all things that are going to be good solutions, but they have to be executed on sooner than later to solve this shortage crisis.
All right, taking a look ahead then to June 1st, when these new stress tests come into effect, if you were to look into your real estate crystal ball, what sort of an effect is that going to have on the market when they come into effect?
I don't think there was going to be a decline in prices. There will be a decline in activity. There will be an increase in inventory, and there will be a flattening. So again, I repeat, there won't be a decline, but there will be a flattening in the market. We'll see a little bit more normalcy. We may see the days on market increase. We've been accustomed to a house goes on the market day 1, and by day 3, there are bully offers or preemptive offers, and by day 7, there's a sold sticker on the home. We'll probably see that increase to around 21 days to 30 days before a home is actually sold. We'll probably see conditions coming back into the market. Most buyers to date have been purchasing without condition on financing, without a condition on inspection, without the condition on I have to sell my home in order to buy your home. So those are the 3 major conditions that we haven't been seeing. Lawyers' approvals conditions, we haven't seen those for a while. Again, these are all great conditions to have. And if you're not in a position to have those conditions, at least do your due diligence before submitting an offer. Have an inspector walk through ahead of time. Have a lawyer review your offer ahead of time. Make sure your funding is in place. Make sure that you've done all of your checks before you submit an offer so you don't get caught on the final days of closing without knowing what you ended up buying.
And Faisal, I'm interested in hearing your take on these new stress tests. Having to qualify at 5.25%, was this a needed move in Canada?
It's a Band-Aid. It's one other sort of pacifier that the government has come up with to say this will be the magic ticket to slow down this market. The magic ticket is not coming with higher interest rates and stress tests. The magic ticket is intensification, more development, allow more lots to be built, and it doesn't necessarily have to be concrete jungles. We are a vast country with lots of land. Let's start expanding out a little bit. Let's start annexing into the townships. And I know that that's a soft spot with many people. They don't want to go into Puslinch, for example, or North Dumfries or Flamborough. But there are lands that are out there that should be developed. Some conversions, old industrial sites, even if they're contaminated, they can be remediated and be developed. So if the government, right from federal to provincial to municipal levels, would just start looking at it and take the advice of people that are in the trenches and say, okay, what are you seeing? What do we need? Coming up with another little bit of a roadblock or a hiccup, people find ways around it. Because I'll tell you a way around it right now. The 5 banks, the 5 major banks are governed by this regulation of the stress test. The credit unions are not. So you can go to your local credit union. They don't have to abide by that regulation. So people will just shift to a credit union instead of going to a bank. They'll go to a mortgage broker and get private funding. There are so many different ways around it. And guess what? We learned this in 2017. In November of 2017, when they proposed this, and then it came into effect in January of 2018, there was a major slowdown in the market. In fact, prices actually declined that time. This is why I don't feel prices are going to decline, because last year, or the last time this happened, within 9 months of that happening, we were right back up because people figured it out. They figured out we can go to a credit union, go to a private lender, we can get a mortgage broker. We will get mom and dad to co-sign for us, get our income up, qualify us. There's so many different ways. A Band-Aid solution of putting a roadblock for financing isn't the solution. Inventory is the solution. Create more housing, create more affordable housing. And that's what we're going to talk about again today, about this tiny home mandate or these auxiliary homes, so that we can see if that will resolve it. again, I have some thoughts on that as well.
Thanks for joining us on the show today. Faisal Susiwala is back with us from Remax Twin City Realty. You can learn more at homeshack.com or call him at 519-624-5555. If you're just joining us before the break, we mentioned that we were going to start talking about this craze. I mean, I've been seeing it for a few years now, the idea of people moving into a tiny home. So let's talk about tiny homes and additional dwellings and what that means for the market here in Kitchener-Waterloo.
So David, tiny homes in many people's perception was just a subdivision of little sheds or garages that have or containers that have been converted into dwellings. What the city of Kitchener had proposed is that if you own a home currently and the lot size is approximately 42 and a half feet wide by about 100 foot deep, you would be permitted to add an additional dwelling separate from your existing home, say in your backyard, not to exceed 1.5 stories at 865 square feet. So just to give you an example, that would be a fairly comfortable 2-bedroom condo apartment, like a 2 bedrooms with a bathroom and a kitchen and a little living room. That would be a comfortable size 2-bedroom, with 10 by 10 bedrooms, basically. So that's what the proposal was, and that has been now passed. So out of the 57,000 homes that are in Kitchener, approximately 25,000 homes would qualify for these tiny homes to be built in their backyards. Now, that will come with a whole set of issues, I believe, that I'm sure that the city has thought of. And I should mention that Cambridge is also considering this. I was speaking to Councillor Scott Hamilton last week about this, and the initiative is very similar to what Kitchener is doing. And there are approximately 30,000 single-family detached type of lots in Cambridge. I'm not sure what percentage of those would be qualified, but you must be on municipal water, you must have sewer, you must have electricity, gas lines must be there, services must be there. So we could start seeing this. The bigger question is who's going to live in these, and is this going to resolve the housing crisis that we have?
All right, well then that is the next question. Who will live in these and how is this going to work, Faisal? I mean, are you selling part of your backyard to someone else, or are you renting the space to them? How's it going to work?
So you as the homeowner would have to build this home. So it's not a lot severance. You cannot sell it independently from your own home. But yes, an owner could rent out that dwelling to someone that's looking for a rental apartment or a rental home. And, for that type of square footage, 865 square feet, one can expect to pay probably $1,500 a month in and around that, plus utilities for that space. So the question will be, will the utilities be separated? Will it be on the same meter? How will that tax the services? Is there going to be enough capacity in our sewer systems and our water to take on this additional load? I'm sure, again, that there has been research done on this, or at least I hope there has been, to make sure that that is being considered before that. Police and ambulance and fire service, all of that has to also be accommodated for these tiny homes. Now, as a landlord, are landlords going to be permitted to build tiny homes in rental property? So now you've got a rental in the front, a rental in the back. What's that going to do to the image of a subdivision or the integrity of a subdivision? How is that going to all play out? My thoughts originally were that if it was multi-generational, if it was for related family members. So I have an elderly parent, let's say, that can no longer live on their own. Well, maybe I can have them move into a tiny home on my property and I can look after them. I think that's a great option. If I have a young son or daughter that's getting a start in life, getting married, and they're not quite in position to buy a home, perhaps I could have a tiny home built in my backyard for them to live in. So that would solve a lot of this frustration that people have, that they can't find affordable housing. At least there's something existing that they can have. Now, I have always been a firm believer of severing lots and doing infill developments so that we're creating affordable housing, because I don't see how tiny homes will create affordable housing. It will create more rental dwellings, but it's not going to solve the problem. In fact, I think it's going to be a bigger problem, because if I have to invest $200,000 in building a tiny home in my backyard, I'm going to want to recoup that money at some point, making my home even more expensive and probably more valuable, because now I have a rental income component that's going to be attached to my home. So there's a lot of components here that we have to think about before saying, hey, this is the best thing that's ever happened. Is it though? If the cities and the municipalities would just allow higher density intensification and not put so many roadblocks for developers wanting to create housing. Like, there's so many rules on setbacks and square footage. And now we're going to see 865 square foot dwellings pop up in everyone's backyard. Why not allow a subdivision of a 1 acre townhouse site and allow 40 units to be built on there? Why not allow that? That's a better solution, in my opinion, on affordable housing. This will be a good solution for creating rental housing.
Mhm. And will there be a cutoff at some point? You said there were roughly 25,000 homes that would qualify for this, but if all 25,000 of them started building tiny houses, wouldn't that have a big dent on the infrastructure here in Kitchener-Waterloo? Are they going to cut it off?
Well, I don't know if they can. Like, is that a possibility? Can they say, well, you can have it, but I can't have it, or I can have it and my neighbor can't have it? Like, where maybe there's going to be a timeline. I don't know if all of this has been really, reported on yet or talked about yet, but it's a great question. And my question to my local councillor in Cambridge was, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the sewage capacity? Do we have the water capacity? Do we have the services to support this additional development within existing subdivisions? And it's questionable.
And what do you think it'll end up doing for property values?
Well, it's going to increase the property values on the ones that have them, but it's also going to create, look, if we're not careful, we could end up seeing these little shanty towns pop up everywhere, where a landlord who owns a side-by-side duplex type of idea decides he's going to put 2 more units, 1 on each lot. Now you've got 4 units there. It's going to be a parking lot of cars. You're going to see all of that. You're increasing the density of that particular subdivision that had schools and infrastructure set up for the population that it was meant for. Now you're increasing that again. This is where I thought that as a multi-generational, as an extension to a family dwelling, a related member moving in, made a little bit more sense to me than just popping up more rental units in everyone's backyard. I support this initiative to create more housing. The positive side of it is that, let's say my parents own a home and they're going to move into a tiny home in my backyard. Now that home that my parents own will be freed up for someone to be able to purchase. So that may increase, unintendedly increase inventory in the marketplace. But is it really creating more affordable housing? I don't believe it is.
In your mind, this is a good idea for creating more housing. Are there any other alternatives that we could look at instead of tiny homes?
Yeah, so you take a 60-foot lot, and right now there are certain zoning bylaws that are in effect that if you've got a 60-foot lot in a certain subdivision, you may only build 1 home on that lot. Now, if you take a typical townhome, a freehold, could be 20 feet wide. So why not build 3 townhomes on that 60-foot lot and still make it tasteful, still make it blend into the subdivision? I've done developments myself where I've taken an 80-foot lot and I developed 4 townhomes on that. But I was mindful of my surroundings, of the architecture of the neighborhood, of the types of materials that were used. And I made sure that whatever I was building was going to merge and blend into that subdivision. So it didn't look like something that's just erected out of nowhere. So these are better options, in my opinion, than just saying, let's pop a bunch of tiny homes in people's backyards. Why not create new affordable housing by having 3 or 4 dwellings on 1 lot?
Thanks so much for joining us on Ask the Experts today. My guest is Faisal Susiwala, Canada's top real estate agent. And we should also mention, of course, a best-selling author as well, author of the book, The Real Deal, which we'll be talking about as we finish out the show today and how you can get your copy. If you'd like to learn more as you listen to the show, just go online to homeshack.com, easy to remember, or call 519-624-5555. On to our next topic. So I've certainly seen the street signs, but I understand that people are getting mailings as well, letters in the mail, and the caption is, "I'll buy your home for cash." So Faisal, what is that all about?
What it is, it's when you get it in the mail, it's just a nice way of packaging that sign that you see on the street corners that say, "I'll buy your home for cash," where it's a wholesaling option. It's an investor that has funding that is saying, look, don't put your house on the MLS system. Don't put it in the typical way of marketing it. We'll come in, we'll take it as is. We'll worry about the renovations, no home inspection. We'll just write you a check right now. You can live there for 30 days and then move out. Now, they sell it in a way that it's beneficial to the seller because the inconvenience factor is gone. What people are not realizing, and I'm saddened to say that it's usually the elderly that are being targeted here, but now I'm seeing it even in my mailbox. I'll see it. I'm sure many of the listeners have received these handwritten notes that are very well done with a phone number. Contact us. The values that they're offering are just so below market value and that it's just appalling to see that in some cases I've seen the values at $200,000 less than what the actual market value of that home may be. And what it's true, they do take the home as is. They do write you a check on the spot. But within 2 to 3 months, I'm seeing those homes come back on the market for $400,000 to $500,000 higher than what they were purchased at just months before. So there's a lot of money that was left on the table. And when a seller says, "Oh, that's very convenient. I didn't have to show it. I didn't have to do any work to my home." There are so many different options that they should be considering, especially in a market that we are in now. And I mentioned earlier that 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, pretty much a home is sold, even if it takes 30 days. You have to consider how hard you've worked to build that home or make that home, maintain that home, all the sacrifices you made for the appreciation of that home, and you just gave away $200,000 because you thought this is a more convenient way of selling my home. This is a major issue, and we're seeing more and more of this. And each month, I am shocked at the number of people that are selling their homes to wholesalers, to iBuyers, to these gimmicks that are being offered to them, just because they were told that it would be cash right now, no inconvenience, no inspection, no showings. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being missed out on.
I, off the top of my head, the only reason I can think that you would do this is if you had to move like really fast, like immediately. Is there, in your mind, is there any time where this is a good idea for someone to do?
Well, you know what? I'm approached all the time with that exact situation where somebody says, "Look, I've got to sell. I either have a financial issue or whatever the situation is. I need to be out of here in 30 days." If they reach out to the right professionals, and I can tell you, I in fact have a program where if your home needs to be renovated before it goes on the market, we will loan you the amount of money that's required for the renovation without any interest, without any payment until the deal is closed. And we collect that money at closing at cost. So you can find your own tradespeople, build out what you want to build, and renovate what you need to renovate in order to get more money for that home. So there are solutions out there. They could take home loans out to do the renovations, or if they're falling behind, for example, on their mortgage payments, even that's something that we offer to carry their mortgage for the next 2 or 3 months until we're able to sell their home or close their home. So the only alternative isn't, let's take the person that brings me the quickest cash. And that's where I think people are falling into this trap because they don't know that there are so many other options available to them. But yeah, there are situations all the time where people say, "I don't have a choice. I'm 15 days before the sheriff is going to come and lock me out. It happens. And in those circumstances, I understand that there's value in that, but there's also value in looking at what your options are ahead of time.
Now, you say that these people will buy the home and then end up putting it back on the market and asking $200,000 to $300,000 more.
Yes.
Now, they've obviously put some money into the house to do the renovations and get it ready for the market, but have they put anywhere near that amount back into the
No,
home?
no, absolutely not. So they're buying it probably for about 100,000 less than what the market value is as is. Then they're spending $50,000, let's say, on doing the renovation. So they'll do the new kitchen, the new flooring, carpeting, painting, freshening it up, making it look really good, staging it really well. And then they will ask between $200,000 to $250,000 more than what they purchased it for just months before that date. And I have so many examples of this. It's unbelievable.
Now, for an elderly person or an elderly couple who wanting to sell, the idea that this is trouble free and no hassle is very, it's convenient. It makes it sound like a good idea. What is a better alternative for seniors who want to sell their home with a minimum of fuss?
So to get a professional in there or get a few professionals in there to get some opinions of value, just get an opinion of value from a couple of agents to say, look, come in and tell me what my home's worth. If they're going to sign a contract with one of these, I'll buy your home for cash buyers, at least do it with, consult with your family, consult with your lawyer, get a couple of other opinions before you sign on the dotted line. Just make sure that you haven't put yourself in a position of basically being frauded out hundreds of thousands of dollars just because you bought the house in 1979 for $52,000 and you thought $450,000 was a great price for that home today. And we see it all the time. Unfortunately, we see it within our own industry with even realtors not giving proper advice to their clients. This is why it's always important to work with somebody you trust, or at least get a few opinions, and always run these, especially these types of transactions, run them through a lawyer to make sure that they've done their due diligence, make sure there's no legalities in there that you're going to not be able to get out, and get some consultation before you agree to signing something like that.
Okay. So just wrapping this topic up then, is there anything else you want to say about this before we move on?
Yeah, so if one is, and we talk about elderly, but I'm talking about younger people as well. People can get into a lot of debt. They can get into financial constraints and whatnot. Reach out to professionals that offer renovation loans. Reach out to professionals who will offer to carry your mortgage for the next 2 or 3 months until your home is sold. So don't feel that your only solution is to give your home away, because that's a lot of money. That's a lot of tax-free money you're giving away. Because remember, on your principal residence, there's no capital gains tax. So just be very mindful of every dollar you're not receiving when you're selling your home.
And Faisal, when did you decide that it would be a good idea to offer these kinds of home improvement loans to your clients?
Great question, because so about 3 years ago, I was sitting at a client's home and they showed me the offer from I'll buy your home for cash purchaser. Immediately, I took out my checkbook, which I had in my briefcase, and I said, see that offer? I'm going to write you a check for $10,000 more right now than what that buyer has offered you. But I'm going to tell you something. I don't recommend that you take my offer, because I can assure you that if I go to the market, I will get you at least $50,000 more than what even I would have paid you, even after the additional $10,000. Their response to me was, but I need a new roof. I need a new furnace. My bathroom, is leaking. I said, great. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hire a contractor and we're going to get all that work done. And then we'll sell your home. We ended up selling that home for $100,000 more than the I'll buy your home for cash buyer would have paid. And the total cost was $12,000 to get it up to that standard where those objections were mitigated. So moral of the story is, I was able to get the listing. I got paid my commission. They got $100,000 more than they would have. So everyone walked away happy. And that was a very simple solution for what someone thought was a huge problem, that they were willing to take that massive of a hit on the selling price because they just didn't have the $12,000 or $15,000 that they needed to do the renovations.
It sounds like a no-brainer. Do a lot of your clients take advantage of your offer?
I wouldn't say a lot, but I would say there's probably about 10% of my sellers that will do that. And sometimes it's something as simple as, you know, we're not able to afford the mortgage payment for the next 2 months or 3 months. You know, someone's lost a job or whatever. There's been a death in the family. Well, as agents, we need to offer more than I list your house, I sell your house, I help you buy a home. What we can offer is solutions by funding them to get over that little hurdle in their life. And you as an agent know that when that house sells, you'll get your money back because a direction is signed to the solicitor saying, when they get their money, I get my money.
All right. So the moral of the story then is before you sell your home for cash, they should probably give you a call, I guess.
Absolutely.
All right. We've got about another minute and a half in this. So maybe we'll start off by talking a little bit about our next topic, which is off-market listings by agents. Maybe in the next minute and a half, you could just tell us what that is all about. What is our off-market listings?
Well, it's a little bit of a pet peeve for me because I'm very pro MLS. Let's market your property. Let's get it out there. Let everybody see it. Let's let everybody see it for a week. And then let's not even look at an offer for the first week. Let's get a bidding war. And I know buyers don't like that, but sellers should love that idea because you're exposing your house to the masses. When you get an agent offering to sell your home off market, it's kind of one level above the I'll buy your home for cash. And that means they're not going to put on MLS. They're not going to expose it to the masses. They've got a pool of buyers, a pool of investors, or a pool of agents that they will offer your home to. And at that point, they will present an offer to you. And the gimmick is the same. No inconvenience, no inspection. You don't have to show it to 20 different people, and we'll sell your home.
On the show today, joined once again by Faisal Susiwala of Remax Twin City Realty, online at homeshack.com, and on your telephone at 519-624-5555. Before the break, we introduced the topic of off-market listings by agents, and Faisal was telling us that, well, in his opinion, is just one level above the I'll buy your home for cash people.
Yeah, basically, I don't have a lot of respect for that type of sales because yes, it's advantageous to the agent who's offering an off-market listing because it's essentially an exclusive listing. They're keeping it to themselves, introducing it to their own client base and their circle of agents. They're only introducing it to their own buyers. Now, it can be advantageous to a buyer. There's no question, because the buyer doesn't feel that they have to compete in order to buy that home because it's off market. There's no MLS, there's no bidding war, there's no presentation, there's no open houses, none of that. So that means that the buyer has an advantage. But if you're hiring a realtor, aren't you hiring a realtor to get you the highest possible price for your home without all those inconveniences? I get that. But even if there are a few inconveniences, i.e. showings of your home, why not take advantage of the full market, the full services, all of the out-of-town buyers that are coming in here and seeing great value? So you got to remember, as an agent, are you working for the seller or are you working for the buyer? You can't say to the buyer that you're working for them and tell the seller, hey, I'm going to list your home off market. I'm not going to tell anybody other than the people that I want to know about it. And I'm going to bonus certain agents to bring offers here so that we can get a deal done pretty quickly, but we're not going to tell anybody. Now, how does that make sense? If I was a home seller, I would want the world to know about my home and get as many offers to the table as possible, create the bidding war. And I know the bidding war is a soft topic for a lot of people right now, and it's touchy because is it open bidding, is it closed bidding? And we've talked about this. But this idea of off-market exclusive, let's not tell anyone, Why wouldn't you want people to know? It's like when a seller says to me, I want to sell my house, but don't put up a sign on my front lot. Well, if you've got cars pulling up to your driveway every day, you're either selling your home or you're selling something else. So you want to make sure that people realize that you're available for sale, because you never know who is saying, if that home ever came on the market, I'd be interested in it. So just be very cautious of anyone that's saying, I'll buy your home for cash, or B, I'll sell your home off market because I've already got a buyer. They may also be a wholesaler as an agent, but are they disclosing to you that they're buying it for themselves, that they're buying it for their family, that they're not going to go out there and renovate and flip it? So there's a lot of this type of thing going on. And we're encouraging the Real Estate Council of Ontario to come down hard on these agents that are doing those practices and not exposing and being transparent to the market about these homes.
All right. And finally, just I've got down here, Faisal's footnote is bonusing agents. What do you mean by that, Faisal?
So bonusing an agent is I could call my colleague and say, hey, listen, nudge, nudge, I've got this listing coming. I'm not going to throw it on the market. I'll throw in an extra bonus if you can get me this kind of price for it. And we just won't tell anybody else about it. So again, that practice of bonusing, in my opinion, should be illegal. The practice of off-market listings should not be allowed because it's not doing the seller a service. Remember, as a realtor, you have to disclose who you're working for. If I'm working for you, David, I should expose your property to the full market and get the highest possible price. And if it takes a bidding war to get that, so be it. That's what you hired me for.
Moving on then, for folks who may be sitting at home going, is this still a good time to invest in real estate? What's your answer to them?
So I get a lot of emails and postings on my social media saying, Faisal, you're ruining the market. Prices are too high. Our children will never be able to buy a home. You're a very bad man. You've ruined this for our kids. So here's what I would like to say. You as a parent or as a homeowner today should be purchasing at least one investment property per child. And you can use the equity in your home, extract some of that to invest that. There's tax advantages to it. There's appreciation. There's great return on your investment. And it doesn't matter that you may feel that today the prices are too high. The prices are always going to seem too high in the current moment. But when you look back 5 years, you're going to say, I made the right decision. These properties, when rented out, will appreciate in value, will give you some income. It will help you through your retirement and will help your children buy their first home when they're ready to do so. It will pay for their education. So there are RESPs, and I believe in all of that. But I also believe in diversification. And there's no time like the present to invest in real estate. If you look at the market forever, it has always gone up over time. So yes, it's always a good time to invest in real estate. It's never a good time to sell those assets if you don't have to.
Okay. Along the lines of helping out your kids, though, you're saying you should buy a property for each one of them. Is that a property that the kid's going to move into, or is it just simply an investment property, or will you also help your kids buy their first home?
Well, it could be a property that they eventually move into, but until they're ready to move into it, you now have a vehicle in that will help fund their future. So the people that are saying today that our children will never have a chance and their kids are 7 or 8 years old, but they haven't gone out and bought an investment property, they haven't invested in their future. There are so many opportunities. All of my clients, the people that I have had as clients for the last 30 years, I coach them regularly on reinvesting into this real estate business so that they have something to retire off of. They have something to help pay for the children's education. They have money to extract from if they need it. And when their children are old enough, you can say, okay, here you go. Here's your down payment. Or here you go. Here's a property you can live in until you're on your feet. And then I'll rent it out again and live off of the rental income. So there's so much that you can do with these rental properties. I've got an entire book out that talks about this.
Well, hey, what a good segue. Let's talk about the book as we finish off the show today. It's called The Real Deal, and you wrote it, and it's now
Right.
even available as an audiobook. So, why did you feel it was important to write this book?
So over the last 33 years, I've had quite the journey in this business. I've had a great journey in this business, and I've appreciated a lot of the friendships I've made, the mentorship that I've had, the lessons that I've learned. And I want to share those experiences with people. Often people ask me to talk to them about these things. And I thought, okay, why not put it into a book? So it talks a little bit about my life as a realtor, it talks about my investment journey, and then it talks about strategies, not only for realtors, but it also talks about strategies for every person that is owning a home or wanting to own a home, how to buy that house, or how to buy their first investment property, what to do with it, what kind of returns to expect, and how to leverage those assets to create greater wealth, multi-generational wealth, so that you've got something to leave for your kids, live into your retirement, and leave something for them and give them a good start in life. So the book is called The Real Deal. Got a shameless plug here for you, but that's basically, there's chapters on investing, why invest, what the benefits of investing are. And it's interesting. The formulas are so simple. It just needs execution. And if someone could, as simple as myself, could learn that over my journey as an 18-year-old kid, I'm sure it's not going to take a lot to understand how to create great wealth just by investing in real estate.
And do I need to know anything about real estate to get something out of this book?
You really don't. You don't need to know anything other than the fact that you have to get started now. And if that means you buy your first home, then buy your first home, because that is the seed that will grow into many, many other investments.
All right. Once again, we have learned a lot. Faisal, thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, David.
Faisal Susiwala is Canada's top real estate agent with Remax Twin City Realty. If you would like to get in touch with them, you can call him at 519-624-5555 or learn more on his website at homeshack.com. Thanks so much for being with us. Join us again next Saturday at noon for more of Ask the Experts here on 570 News.